One key player returned to practice for Penn State, and then just like that, another one was absent.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's talk about the latest takeaways from Penn State football practice. These position groups for the Nittany Lions need to step up in that game against Bowling Green and just go over some final thoughts for that Penn State versus Bowling Green matchup this Saturday. This is Locked On Nittany Lions. I'm your host, Zach Seyko, and thanks so much for making us your first listen and watch every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. And today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, I'm looking forward to seeing your score predictions, so let me know down in the comments your final score prediction and expectations for Penn State versus Bowling Green. Of course, I greatly appreciate it if you left a like on this episode. We'll start with the practice observation. So Penn State opened up football practice once again to the media, had post-game interviews and reactions from the players and, of course, James Franklin. And the notable takeaways from that practice were the fact that a key player returned for Penn State and then another key player was missing. And that's a big deal to me because of the depth at this position group. Let's talk about the player that actually returned, Khalil Dinkins. Tight end Khalil Dinkins is back. He was presumed to be the second tight end on the depth chart. I'm overly confident in Andrew Rapplier and Luke Reynolds as far as what they were able to do leading into the season. But I always kind of thought Rapplier would eventually transcend and move up to that number 2 spot. But Khalil Dinkins, being the veteran, we didn't get to see a whole lot from Rapplier and Reynolds in that game against West Virginia. But just having the more the merrier in this sense. It was good to see that Khalil Dinkins was able to return to practice. It doesn't sound like there are intentional limitations on him. It kind of depends on matchup, right? This is Bowling Green, so you don't want to overwork him in a return after injury. And James Franklin talked about that. Franklin had said, hey, we understand that he's missed some time. He's going to have to get back to game level speed and everything like that. So don't anticipate that Dinkins plays a lot against Bowling Green, maybe the first half or so. And again, Luke Reynolds and Rapplier, I think, have a lot to prove. He mentioned Joey Schlaffer as well. Remember, Schlaffer was a top 10 tight end in his own right in the nation for that class of 2023, just like Rapplier. So there is plenty of talent in that position group. They don't have to expend Dinkins too much going into the game against Bowling Green. And of course, more importantly, you also have that bye week following it up. You really don't want to have Dinkins, you don't want to force Dinkins to have a setback in this case. So Penn State, I don't think will do the wrong thing here. They're going to make sure that he works his way back into the lineup. And this is a good game to do that in going into the bye week and then Kent State. Now the player that was missing, Ta'Mere Robinson, the linebacker, second-year redshirt freshman. I had high hopes for Ta'Mere Robinson as well. And for those who may or may not remember, in that West Virginia game, actually got into a big collision on kickoff to end the first half. It was after Penn State scored in 22 seconds. And Ta'Mere Robinson was going for a big hit, and it ended up being on the bad side of that collision. And he exited the game, and it did look serious. I was like, "Oh man, Robinson's shaken up here. I wonder how things are going to go from here." And it's not looking the best, at least in the case of 2 days before a football game, or 3 days, I should say. We went on Wednesday, 3 days before a game, and Robinson's missing from practice, or isn't, and clearly is limited. He's not there. That might be a telltale sign of what's going on now. Again, that's just one practice window. So we'll see if Robinson is actually available on Saturday, but just based on him being absent from practice on Wednesday, and him taking that kind of hit against West Virginia, I would say that it doesn't look good for him to play on Saturday if it is a serious type of injury. There's no reason, kind of the same thing. You don't want to set Dinkins back. You certainly don't want to set back Robinson as well, because that leads to a bigger point here. So the overall takeaway of that is that the linebacker group, the depth is just not good. The depth is not good. Kind of like the wide receivers, Penn State is in a situation where you only have 4 or 5 trustable players at this point to go into game action. We know that's Tony Rojas. We know that's Dom DeLuca. We know that's Kobe King. And that's why Penn State's running a lot of 4-2-5 with 3 safeties in the back end of the defense. And if one of those guys is missing, okay, so I named the 3 starters, if you will, right? It's Kobe King is your mainstay at linebacker, and then Tony Rojas and Dom DeLuca are going to rotate in that 4-2-5. But then after that, it's just Tyler Elsdon and it's just Tamir Robinson. I don't need to talk about Kavion Keys and Jameel Lyons anymore, Lyons being a defensive end. So with the current group of linebackers, you don't have anybody else that's reliable to this point. Penn State moved down Dakari Nelson from that safety spot to accommodate the depth at linebacker, but he weighs under 220 pounds, so he has to add the weight or he's just going to get pushed out of the front 7. It's not going to be a fair matchup when he has to take on a block from a pulling guard or the center that climbs to the next level. That's just not fair, and it's going to look bad for Nelson. And then you have a bunch of talented freshmen that just haven't played any football yet at the collegiate level. Anthony Specca, high praise for him from fellow teammates. And then Kari Jackson, I like what I've seen from Kari Jackson in limited stints at open practice availability. But that's it. That is it for Penn State at linebackers, those 5, and that was kind of what I was worried about. Whether it was a Kobe King or a Tony Rojas or a Dom DeLuca, and then that second group, that second pair of linebackers, Tyler Elsdon and Tamir Robinson. Penn State could not afford a serious injury. It's Bowling Green. You have a bye week, and then Kent State follows it up. So if Robinson needs to rehab and heal, okay, you have about a 3-week window, and even to an extent, again, Illinois is not really going to challenge you that much. And I can't believe I'm saying that, but that's the gap between Penn State and Illinois, and it is a home game. Same thing with UCLA. I don't think UCLA is going to be that competitive this year, and we know that. That's basically the word around the country. So for Penn State, they have an opportunity to make sure that everybody is as healthy as possible if they do deal with some bumps and bruises. But in this case, the group that is being affected that could not be affected, really, linebacker was the group that out of all the injuries that can happen to this team, it can't happen to the linebacker room. And that's unfortunately where it is at this point. And hopefully Robinson can get back on the football field as soon as possible. Maybe he was just missing from Wednesday's practice window, but the hit did not look good in the West Virginia game. He was absent from practice. I gotta imagine, I don't anticipate him playing against Bowling Green. And he was one of the players that I spotlighted. I said that he was a player that I would like to see have a really good performance against Bowling Green. And I don't know that we're going to get the chance to see that. Now, overall, these position groups need to step up against Bowling Green. Linebacker is one of them. I'll tell you about the other 2 on the other side of this break. And today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but they might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of those LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn understands that small businesses are wearing tons and tons of hats and might not necessarily have the time to devote to hiring. That's why LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier and more intuitive. And that's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Be one of them. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's episode is also brought to you by Home Field Apparel. Hey, football fans, fall is quickly approaching, and that means one thing. College football is back, and to make sure that you're ready, we've partnered with Home Field, the exclusive apparel sponsor of our show, to bring you their Can't Miss Kickoff 2024 campaign. Home Field is the go-to for premium collegiate apparel, crafted with comfort in mind and featuring vintage designs that'll make you the envy of any tailgate. With over 180 schools to choose from, there's something for every fan, literally. But the real MVP is the Home Field Platinum Football Box. This is your all-access pass to exclusive gear for the 2024 season with 3 never-before-seen items for your school. Plus, VIPs get even more. There's a special hat included, plus the 2024 Platinum Pass for early access and discounts all season long. So don't wait. Head to homefieldapparel.com and gear up today. Again, that's homefieldapparel.com. And as listeners and viewers of Locked On Nittany Lions, we got a special promo code for you as well. It's 15% off your first purchase, and the code is WEARE24. That is WEARE24. Use that promo code now over at homefieldapparel.com. Linebackers were one of the position groups that needed to step up in the Penn State Bowling Green game. The other two, I'll save for just a moment, but just to kind of rehash the linebacker group. I wanted to see a good amount of Tamir Robinson, see what Tyler Elsdon can do as well. You would hope that there's gradual improvement from a season ago that this show and other Penn State outlets definitely gave some criticism, and fans gave criticism to Tyler Elsdon too. Warranted, unwarranted, right? Elsdon did not receive a lot of high praise a season ago. So this is an opportunity for Elsdon. We'll see if Robinson's out there. I don't have confidence in it. I don't think he'll be available on Saturday against Bowling Green. Just kind of, again, logically speaking here, based on practice availability and then the West Virginia game. But besides the point, this is now an opportunity for the true freshmen, Kari Jackson, Anthony Specka. I'll even throw Dakari Nelson into this conversation as well. We'll see what the nutrition dieting plan has for him now, going from that safety spot where he was under 220 pounds. You would like him to be at least 230, ideally 240. Dakari Nelson, the Penn State coaching staff is going to best understand his nutrition to see, okay, how is he going to be able to handle putting on the weight for that linebacker spot. But I just want to see the skill set as well. Being a safety, you already are going to have a natural instinct for playing closer to the box. Zach Wheatley is your traditional free safety, but Dakari Nelson being that strong safety that acts as the hybrid of being in coverage, but has that you have to be able to stop the run if you are going to be a strong safety type. So Dakari Nelson moves to linebacker. I want to see that skill set honed in for Nelson. And then Specka and Jackson, depending on availability of the linebackers, you might have to end up burning one or both of their red shirts. And right now, Penn State, James Franklin have not made any indications that anybody else with the green light, yellow light, red light, only Cooper Cousins and Dejon Lane, the true freshman safety, are currently green lit. They have the plan right now, the blueprint in place to burn their individual red shirts. Down the road, you just might have to, and hopefully Anthony Specka or Kari Jackson are up to the challenge and are ready to go. But this is a game that I want to see them have good performances. So if they end up entering the game in the third or the fourth quarter, I am definitely keeping an eye on Specka and Jackson if and when they enter the game. And of course, Nelson as well. But the true freshmen who have been with the intention of playing linebacker here, I want to see what they are capable of just 2 games into the 2024 season, especially when you were not all injuries are equal in this case. Kobe King, Tony Rojas, and Dom DeLuca, you don't want to lose any of them. Wooden desk, knock on wood. I don't like speaking that into existence, but depth is a concern. I asked James Franklin about the linebackers on Wednesday at his press conference. He acknowledged that depth at the linebacker spot is a concern. So one of those first 5 that I named, Robinson being out, if he does have an injury that is going to keep him out of football games for an extended period of time, that does not bode well because Penn State already doesn't have ideal depth at that spot. Now, the other 2 position groups, I want to start with the wide receivers, and then I'll go to my last position group for Penn State. Wide receivers, good news for Penn State is that Caden Saunders is still practicing and doesn't look like he has any limitations. He was missing practice briefly in the preseason, and then he was there the week leading up to West Virginia and ultimately played, but was not factored into the passing game. This conversation isn't just about Caden Saunders, although he is a wide receiver, so he is a part of it, but it's not just about his availability. The same standard does carry over from linebacker to wide receiver. You have about 5 players that you can trust right now. Trey Wallace is your clear-cut number 1. He showed that. We've been talking about it all off season. And then after that, Amari Evans, who I say is the X factor to taking this offense from being good, serviceable, to great, elite, because of that speed that nobody else has in the offense. Okay, Nicholas Singleton, but Nicholas Singleton isn't running streaks in the slot. Maybe he will. We'll see. But in terms of the wide receivers, he is definitely the only one that can do that type of stuff, or at least be consistently effective at it. He has afterburner speed that not a lot of players on this team have, period. He's easily one of the 3 fastest players on the team. That's Amari Evans. Julian Fleming, and why with all of you is because Julian Fleming and Liam Clifford did not catch a pass. Now, in the scheme of things, that doesn't matter because Penn State won. Penn State won 34-12 convincingly against West Virginia. You didn't need them to, but that still doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. Okay, because you didn't need them to doesn't mean that they shouldn't or that they can't, right? So in this game against Bowling Green, wide receivers, why I put them slightly above this group in terms of overall, the significance of their overall group performance. Wide receiver is important here because Bowling Green actually has a pretty decent secondary. They are out to defend the pass, to limit it as best as possible. They run a 3-3-5. For some that don't know, that is 3 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, and 5 defensive backs. So kind of like Penn State running this 4-2-5 defense. I mean, Bowling Green really puts its assets to the linebackers and the defensive backs. You have 8 that are away from the line of scrimmage most of the time. You can do things with that hybrid linebacker defensive end, shift them down, or have them drop back into coverage. But Bowling Green's defense is designed to stop the pass, to try to limit it as best as possible. And frankly, there's some NFL talent in the back end of that defense. I highlight Oladokin. He was really good a season ago. First team preseason, all MAC conference. Again, I get it. It's the MAC conference. You don't have to remind me. But Oladokin, I think, has an NFL future. And honestly, any of those other 5 defensive backs, any of those other 4 defensive backs, the 2 safeties and the 3 defensive backs overall, I think have NFL futures if they play their cards right. And that's my point. This is a really good test for the wide receivers, for Julian Fleming, Liam Clifford, for Trey Wallace to continue and build that momentum, carry that over from West Virginia. Amari Evans as well had the big catch, right? 55 yards. And then if Caden Saunders is 100%, right, I want to see all 5 of them be involved in the game plan. If they're available, if they're healthy. I also understand if Penn State, like Khalil Dinkins, like we presume for Tamir Robinson, if you don't see a lot of Caden Saunders, that's not necessarily a concern at this point. I think they're protecting him because they need him for a 12-plus game schedule. I understand that. So don't be surprised if Saunders happens to be in the same situation as Dinkins, where he's just limited again. He returned punts. He caught punts against West Virginia. He doesn't need to show a whole lot against Bowling Green, but it is important to get this wide receiver group involved against a secondary that can pose a challenge, being relative to a MAC conference team. The last group, and I brought this up in my Penn State versus Bowling Green overall preview, where I talked about the Falcons a lot, is the fact that the offensive line did great in pass protection against a West Virginia defensive line pass rush that really isn't all that good. But the run game, I know the kind of game that Nicholas Singleton had, but outside of that, I wasn't overly impressed. And the analytics back it up too. They back up the fact that Nick Dawkins, Sal Wormley, and Drew Shelton were not good in run blocking. Banga Ioane, Cooper Cousins, Anthony Donko, Nolan Rucci were okay at best. And I think that's being generous. The group as a whole was definitely below average against a West Virginia front 7 that I don't know how good they are yet. I need to see them play some more football games, but I hope that they were a little more challenging than meets the eye. But run blocking was just not good. Now, we need to see if that's chemistry related. Is that a talent thing? Is that a coaching thing? Run blocking is going to be key here to help that Penn State defense to sustain drives. And it showed, other than Nicholas Singleton breaking off not 1 but 2 big runs, one of them scored a touchdown. Katron Allen And Cam Wallace combined for 44 yards and had 19 carries between the two of them. I've said that's unacceptable. I'll say it again, especially for Kaytron Allen going into his third season as a co-starter. Kaytron Allen should not be getting 20 yards on the ground on 10 carries. So great that Nicholas Singleton had the day that he did, but that's why it's important to see the offensive line in a game against MAC level competition. Group 5, outside of the Power 4, this should be an incredible day for both Singleton and Allen, and I'd even include Cam Wallace and Beau Pribula in this conversation. Those are going to be your 4 leading rushers, and Drew Aller to an extent, right? Since he has that dual threat ability now that we've talked about a lot. But I want to see the ground game. Penn State should have 50, 60 carries in this game, and the offensive line should make easy work of Bowling Green's front 6. It's not a front 7. It's a 3-3-5. So that's what I mean. This defense is designed to stop the pass, but it's pretty susceptible to giving up some big run plays. That is going to be on the offensive line. We'll see how they'll perform. Let's finish up the show with this. Just some final thoughts about game day, Bowling Green, go over my spread prediction and my total predictions. That's all coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. You got to download the Gametime app because buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. Gametime is the place to get those last-minute tickets to everything sports, concerts, theater, comedy, and so much more. And Gametime now has a new feature called Gametime Picks. That makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff, so you only see the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. And since Gametime's the place to get last-minute tickets, let's look at last-minute tickets for Penn State versus Bowling Green. So I have it pulled up right in front of me, and you can get tickets as low as $3 on Gametime. You can get that for Penn State versus Bowling Green. And then it shows you the top deals. So right in front here, it shows you a super deal for $18 tickets. It also has an amazing deal for those cheap tickets for $3, and then another amazing deal for lower sideline tickets that cost just $6. This is over on Gametime right now for Penn State versus Bowling Green if you want last-minute tickets for this game. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, use that code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. In case anyone missed the Bowling Green versus Penn State preview episode that I did, I encourage everybody to go check it out if you haven't listened to it or watched it already. But I'll go over my prediction again. I think Penn State wins 42-0 against Bowling Green. Obviously, there's no doubt in my mind that Penn State wins this game. They are built to beat Bowling Green, but they're built to beat them convincingly and for the defense to pitch a shutout. So this game is the home opener, season home opener for 2024. Bowling Green's offense just doesn't inspire a lot of electricity, right? They're not an electrifying offense. They're pretty similar to West Virginia. They rely on the ground game, ball control. Connor Bazelak used to play at Indiana, and his head coach was Tom Allen. I talked about how valuable that is. Different coaching style now, right? Tom Allen's not the same coach that he was 2-3 years ago. Connor Bazelak is not the same quarterback that he was 2-3 years ago, but there is an element of an advantage here when Allen used to coach that specific player, so he knows his strengths and weaknesses. One of the people that knows them better than anybody else, maybe even better than Bazelak himself. Point being is that Penn State should have a really good day against a MAC conference team, an offense that I think is pretty easy to limit here. They rely on the ground game. You take away the ground game, you force them into obvious passing situations, you dial up the blitzes, you turn up the pressure, and Penn State should be able to force turnovers and not allow Bowling Green to drive down the field. Now, I'm also confident in the fact that they don't have that backdoor cover that the total goes over. So the spread is actually moving. It was 34.5 on FanDuel, and now it's 35.5, and the total's at 48.5. For Penn State, you want to obviously be able to complete the shutout for 4 quarters. Penn State has the depth to do that defensively aside from linebacker. But Penn State's running a 4-2-5, right? So the talent that's on the defensive line, the talent that's in the cornerback room, the safety room, is frankly still better and would play at Bowling Green than the Bowling Green starters. Ooh, I know that is quite the criticism there of the Bowling Green team. But if I'm being honest, that yes, Penn State's backups, a majority of them would start at Bowling Green, if I'm being honest. So that's why I think Penn State's able to preserve the shutout in this case. 42-0 is my final score. I think that's fair. Weather reports are interesting. Bring a rain jacket just in case, but I like the weather reporting industry because that's the only job, and I think making your sports picks as well, where you can be wrong and still wrong on a consistent basis and still keep your job. So the weather report said that, hey, it's going to rain. It's going to rain pretty consistently. There's a 90% chance of precipitation. And now that's changed. It looks like there might be some rain earlier in the day, but it's going to clear up as kickoff approaches. So game time, the game itself won't have a lot of expected rain, but I would just bring rain gear, rain jackets anyway, just to be on the safe side, and hopefully it doesn't ruin the season opener. But still, I kind of stand by that. I think 6 touchdowns is a lot. I respect Bowling Green's defense enough for a MAC team. This is a team that is going to contend for a conference title. So just because Penn State wins hypothetically, whether it's my score prediction 42-0 or it's still a 7-8 touchdown deficit, that's not because Bowling Green isn't good in comparison to their competition. It means that Penn State is just that much better. So that's my final score prediction, 42-0. Just by nature, the game's going to go relatively quickly. I know there's a lot of new stoppages and timeouts and everything else, right? But because these two teams are going to, for Penn State, you want to emphasize the run game. You want to see how the offensive line responds after a not so great performance against West Virginia. Pass blocking was great. Run blocking was honestly abysmal. It did not show enough. You need to show that against Bowling Green, that West Virginia, the tape against West Virginia should not be of any concern. And if you're Bowling Green, the only way to try and hypothetically beat Penn State in a crazy world that doesn't exist, you need to shorten the game. You need to run the football. You need to play keep away from Penn State's offense. You can absolutely not get into a shootout with Penn State if you are Bowling Green. That's just the fact of the matter. Bowling Green is obviously lower competition, but the offense, the system is not built to get into a scoring battle with the Penn State Nittany Lions. Game times at noon. Kickoff is scheduled for noon. It's on the Big Ten Network. Excited to see the home opener in person if you're going to the game. Again, safe travels if you are traveling from out of town, and enjoy the day. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. I appreciate you checking out this episode. Please leave a like on it. Let me know down in the comments section your expectations, your final score predictions for this one. And if you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams. And again, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. For your second listen and watch, check out Locked On College Football with host Spencer McLaughlin as he's talking everything college football, whether it's NIL, talking about the impact of the transfer portal additions now as we are in college football mode here, but also conference realignment, the expanded college football playoff. Spencer's talking about all of it, and that's why it's called Locked On College Football. Available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, and it's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.